So, as usual, at the very beginning, be mindful to cultivate a proper motivation so that whatever Dharma we hear would be received well and would be conjoined with this proper motivation so that the potential of its being of benefit would be much more. And then yesterday we left at the topic on refuge, and we were dealing on this topic on all the three levels of the different levels of practitioners, namely the low scope, the middle scope, and the greater scope. So to start with, one must have a sense of refuge, or the level of refuge in line with the low scope practitioner, which is to say that, first of all, we need to develop a sense of recognition of the sufferings, the miseries that qualify the life or rebirth in the lower realms of existence. And then develop a sense of, sense of revulsion against these sufferings, together with their root causes in the form of gross afflictions and the potential and the latencies or the imprints left by them. And then triggered by this sense of strong revulsion against this level of suffering, then one needs to this revulsion should lead us to look up to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha as a viable object of refuge for one to get guidance and eventually develop the Dharma within oneself through the help of the Sangha companionship. So in that light, one should develop a sense of reliance on the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and develop a strong sense of refuge in them by seeing them in the proper perspective. In the sense that one look up to the Buddha as one would look up to a doctor when one is tormented by an illness. But one will not merely leave it at that. Rather, one would try to follow the prescriptions very carefully and take the medicines on time. And in that way, ultimately relying on the medicine, relying on the potency of the medicine or the medication for recovery from the illness. Likewise, one should look up to the teachings that Buddha gives and the implementation of it, living the teachings to be the actual means to deliverance from the suffering of one's concern, that is the sufferings of the lower realms of existence. And then for that to be effective, one has to, like in our daily life, we need to take resort to nurses and health workers for us to keep up with the prescription of the doctor, and likewise take up all other required habits or required disciplines. Likewise, in one's Dharma practice, one needs to look up to the Sangha or the spiritual community for such inspiration and companionship. So in that light, one should develop a strong sense of refuge in them. Now here, what we need to understand is that we need to understand the proper qualities that a Buddha or the Dharma and the Sangha possesses. Although one could go in much detail by explaining all the 8 qualities, excellences of each of these objects of refuge, but due to shortage of time, we cannot go into this, nor does it seem to have any relevance here in going into so much detail. Rather, let's focus on the essence of them. Buddha is someone, as we heard earlier, Buddha is someone who, at a point of time, was as ordinary and confused and as subject to suffering like ourselves now. But due to strong awakening and the follow-up efforts and perseverance, he or she then proceeded through the path and eventually attained the state of complete freedom from not just suffering on himself or herself, but also complete freedom from the very subtle obstructions to omniscience, and thus brought forth the six perfections, or the practices in six perfections, to complete fulfillment, to complete, consummation. And thus, Buddha is someone who is not merely omniscient, but who is also fully compassionate and who is fully equipped with the skillful means in leading sentient beings out of the sufferings, out of the different levels of sufferings. And thus our relation, or our sense of approach to Buddha should be in accordance with this appreciation of what constitutes, or what Buddha is constituted of. And then, and thus look up to Buddha as an unfailing guide or an unfailing teacher to show us the path out of suffering of our concern. And then, in this regard, the Dharma, which in the actual sense is not merely limited to the verbal teaching, but rather the actualization of the qualities, of the positive qualities within oneself, and also the levels of abandonment of the obscurations and afflictions within oneself. Those are the actual Dharma. So it is only through following the teachings of Buddha that one will, through implementation of them, one will then gradually generate those positivities, those qualities within oneself, those stages of path within oneself. And along with that, one would have abandoned or eliminated the different levels of obscurations, beginning from the grosser ones, then eventually to the subtle ones, and eventually completely abandoning them once for all. So those stages of abandonment, those constitute these levels of realizations, and the levels of abandonment from the obscuration, they constitute the actual refuge. So thus, one sense of resorting to the Dharma should be in accordance with this appreciation of what Dharma is constituted of, what real Dharma is constituted of. That it is the actual stages of positivities, or actual stages of qualities developed within oneself by following the teaching of the guidance of the Buddha, and also the levels of abandonment that one begins to attain by following the purifying practices as taught by Buddha. That it is through these attainment that one can be actually, one can receive actual protection. Thus, Dharma is termed as the actual refuge, or the actual protector. And then in this regard, one needs to take the help of fellow spiritual friends, and thus the Sangha, in receiving inspiration and the required companionship in persevering through the practices and meeting the hardships and learning from them. So, in this regard, Sangha is considered to be an unfailing refuge. Thus, Sangha is looked upon as a refuge in the sense of an indispensable, inspiring companion, whereas Dharma is like the actual realizations, levels of realizations, and the levels of abandonments that one begins to develop within one's own, that one begins to build within one's own as a continuum, and thus the actual refuge. And for that to happen, one is to look up to a Buddha, a fully enlightened, compassionate being, equipped with the skillfulness and leading us out of suffering for his guidance. And in this respect, one needs to have a proper appreciation of the refuge and thus relate to them in accordance with that.
Trisur 계속 산지 공단이라서 무난데 산지 처음에 그때 요런만데 산지 지 되게 계를 때문에 말는데 되게 그렇게 저희 그 산지 강가 추도 되게 비슷하다고 산지 때문에 그래서 강가 좀 소화이나 저도 떨쳐 놓는 사고.
So, in terms of how one can receive protection, given that Buddha is fully enlightened and is fully equipped with skillful means in leading us out of suffering, and that the Buddhas don't have any sense of discrimination among sentient beings, rather they have completely universal compassion and love towards all sentient beings. Given such condition of the Buddhas, how is it that one doesn't receive protection? So here, the analogy, through an analogy we can understand this. Just as the rays of sun has the required amount of heat every time and always, yet for those warmth or heat that is in the rays of the sun to kind of focus on and kind of be effective to burn a pebble, one needs to have a magnifying glass in between the sun's rays and the pebble or paper. Likewise is the case with us. We, on our part, need to have the conditions, the conducive conditions to receive the protection, to receive the blessing, to receive the excellences, the Buddhas, to take effect on us. So without faith, more particularly among different kinds of faith, here faith of conviction in the ability of the Buddhas, in the ability and in the excellences of the Buddhas to deliver us from suffering. Without such a faith, one cannot receive the blessings. It is through the door of conviction, it is through the door of the faith of conviction that one will begin to then build up the conditions required of oneself, so that the rays of blessings or the rays of excellences radiated from the omniscient wisdom of the Buddha can take effect. So that's how we cannot merely leave it entirely to the Buddha to take care of the situation. Rather, we need to, on our part, we need to take up the effort in receiving the blessing, in receiving the protection, and among the conditions, among the efforts we need to make, the first that comes is the faith of conviction in the ability of the Buddhas and in delivering us from suffering. And with that faith of conviction as the as the stepping stone, then we will then we can hope to receive the blessing, to receive the protection by caring to implement, by caring to take the guidance to our heart, and implement them in our daily life. And that's how we say that the effect can take place through our effort, given the always present rays of compassion and wisdom radiated by Buddhas.
Kamiya Tanchesa, Pasabe, Tangadoji, Chobada, Chizuda, the Tukagati, Ijimid, Chijiva, Chobada, the Tovaina, Kotan, Nebatanchio, Tarisana, Tangadoji, Jaga Pami, the Gindi, the Tonta Mamananda, the Jedia, the go. Vichaja Mother, the Tangi, you get another 2 days, the Kotarison, cheap with that was a cheap well, then the Chaja got a road, mobile toina, which is never she Chuchio, Tarisata, or Chichus near the Chichi, Kamiya, the Chichi, cheap well, Roja, Pena, and then she. Sabana which and then made by a sing, Sabachi made by so me switch about the door. Sing really made by the jug with the government, but the Nasa not sing. Then I just about the religion that said the Jabaina, switch out, then I can read the joke with that road. What did they come here that just at the time in this song in that, or that can get or the legal job. Sajil Joseph, Gandira Joseph, Chila Joseph, Gandira Joseph, the Dick, Jakara, Sabaina, Shagata, Shubatagistan, and Jella, the Dio. And that is the George was the son of Pangama, and John Hajat, they are song. Children Hajar, Kabi Raja, Raja Siano, Kabi Raja, Sanjay Joseph from Sai, Sukudra, and then Jita, Haru, and the Chief, the dedicated, the Sankin, the Germany came to Joseph Sanjay, and then that Chile Joseph from Sanjay, and that's him by the Chicago. Sijay Benden, the Chanjunchi Amata, Suchakamichi, and the Benasi Paranda, and Chigi, Ajamana, Tibichi. That can get a choice of that different from the two partner, from the Awama taking it, the notice that Chamichana, and so get our share and we are in the Kayueta, and then from. Because of the big Tawama taking the Sanjay, the Bobby, the big Ojas on Kim and Legion, the Kim and the big more than Protection that Chena, and also Suman, that's a big Gabriel, Rapila, Martin, the different thing where they did.
Although when we talk of taking refuge, we can think of taking temporary refuge in what do you call lesser objects, in lesser objects, in objects that has lesser qualities than Buddha's, Dharma, and Sangha. But from them, what we receive is a very temporary. Short lasting refuge, and also through that we cannot receive ultimate refuge, ultimate protection from the sufferings or from the problems. Which by this I mean to say that suppose we have hunger and say through resorting or through going to refuge to some worldly beings, we can relieve our hunger for the time being. But in terms of our potential, or our susceptibility to hunger in the future time, that act of generosity cannot completely, cure us of that susceptibility of our eventual subject to again hunger and the like. So that's what we meant by temporary relief. So although there's nothing wrong in taking temporary relief in the respective objects of refuge, yet it is only by going for refuge into the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha that one can hope for an ultimate, complete freedom from suffering. Even the temporary sufferings like hunger, thirst, etc., etc., they are, if we look very clearly, rooted in our afflictions, in our afflicted emotions and the actions induced by them. They have their link, their karmic link to our actions in the past or in the immediate present. Thus, for us to receive complete freedom from not only the gross sufferings that we identify as suffering and miseries, but even more subtle levels of suffering and further down to the samsaric existence itself, we can only gain freedom from them by resorting to or by going for refuge into the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. That's because unlike worldly objects of refuge, who are or which are themselves kind of immersed in contamination, which are themselves still subject to ignorance and subject to obscurations, Buddhas are someone who have attained complete freedom or who have attained complete liberation from the obscurations, not only of liberation or the obscurations or obstructions, not only to liberation but also to omniscience. And thus, the Buddhas are worthy of ultimate reliance for complete freedom from the suffering. So we should be able to distinguish between these two objects of refuge or two objects of protection that we can resort to. And another thing is that when we, just as we have earlier heard, that Buddha is to be looked upon in the status or in the form of a doctor, in the form of a skilled physician, we can say that merely knowing a physician or merely consulting it and hearing the prescriptions of the physician is not enough to relieve us from the illness that has struck us. It's only by following the prescription and taking the medicine that we can hope for complete recovery from the illness. Likewise, it is only by living the teachings of the Buddha, by first studying them, hearing them, studying them, reflecting on them, and then generating conviction into their, into their essence, conviction into their, credibility, that is to be followed by actual implementation of these teachings. And it's only through that we can hope for complete protection from the sufferings of different levels. And it is in this regard that Dharma is considered the actual refuge, and we should, when we say we go for refuge in Buddha, we should know that going for refuge to Buddha means listening or looking up to Buddha as a guide, as a teacher, and listening to his or her prescription or his or her guidance or his or her teachings. And then when we say going for refuge to Dharma, we cannot merely be content with reciting the refuge prayer, but rather we should know that going for refuge into Dharma means actually practicing the Dharma, actually taking up the teachings of the Buddha and living them. And it's only by living the Dharma that we go for refuge in Dharma. And it's only through that that we can actually begin to receive the protection. Likewise, when we talk of going for refuge into the Sangha, we cannot merely be content with reciting the refuge prayer to that effect, but rather have to appreciate the significance of Sangha around us in our spiritual progression. And in this regard, Rinpoche wants to stress the importance of having a spiritual Sangha for oneself to associate with, and always make effort to kind of maintain that, and if possible, even kind of make it, what you call, grow further and further, but grow in the right direction, grow in the proper sense, not necessarily grow in the material sense, in the physical size sense, but rather grow in the sense of building that companionship, spiritual companionship in the true sense, and help each other be example to look up to for one's spiritual progression in the proper sense. And in this regard, having an association to having a spiritual Sangha or spiritual center to associate with, and then kind of benefit from the programs, from the sensible programs of the center is very, very, important. And one needs to kind of, look up to it in its proper perspective, rather than then again get, swayed and, misled by all unnecessary entanglements that we tend to build up around a community or around the Sangha. So in any way, we need to have a spiritual Sangha to rely on, so that we would carry on with our spiritual practices. No matter how much we may try, single-handedly, we cannot sustain our practices. We may be able to try and sustain it for 1 day or 2 days, but then eventually, with the lack of spiritual community to kind of involve with and learn from and grow from, we will then eventually lag in our spiritual integrity and eventually kind of lose our spiritual force or spiritual stamina to kind of keep on growing. So one needs to have a proper perspective in this respect towards the spiritual Sangha, and try always one's best in kind of building it and making it grow in the proper sense, and kind of develop a sense of tolerance and patience in terms of meeting the hardships that evolves with the, with the involvement in the Sangha, and kind of overlook them for its, overlook these hardships for the much more important, essential significance that Sangha holds for each other's spiritual growth. So if we perceive the objects of refuge in these proper ways and relate to them, then we can hope for obtaining the benefits of going into refuge for Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. Although there are so many benefits enumerated in the text, but mainly the benefits are through going into refuge into the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, our temporary difficulties, our temporary agonies, our temporary miseries will be relieved. And then more importantly, going into refuge will effect in actually working or rooting out our afflictions at the root state, and then eventually kind of help us completely be rid of the sufferings at all different levels, and eventually attain complete freedom in the form of Buddhahood, or in the form of full enlightenment. So this is how the benefits of going to refuge will begin to, will begin to appear, or will begin to take root in our life. And in this regard, we do hear of the precepts of taking refuge. Merely going for refuge is again not enough. One needs to take up practices, one needs to take up positive practices and also practices of restraint. Very often, and this itself falls in line with what we were talking about as to how, or what is the proper way of going into refuge into the Buddha, Dharma and the Sangha. Because mainly we look up to the Buddha for his teachings, and many of his teachings take the form of restraint, of how we need to moderate our actions of body, speech and mind, how due to our overindulgence in them, many of the sufferings befall us. And in this regard, we need to take up certain practice of restraint. And in the light of refuge, such practice of restraint may take the form, say, in respect to Buddha, it may take the form of not ultimately relying on any lesser objects than Buddha. And in respect to Dharma, do take up a practice of restraint in terms of bringing harm to other sentient beings. And then in relation to Sangha, the practice of restraint will take the form of avoiding bad companionship. Any companionship that can, that can harm your spiritual integrity, your spiritual conviction, your belief in the effectiveness of the teachings of Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. And such companionships we need to avoid, at least in our initial stages of spiritual progression, when we ourselves are still short of spiritual strength to kind of stand against adversities. We need to avoid the adversities. We need to avoid the the opposing factors. And in this, one of the principal opposing factors is bad companionship. So we need to avoid it. And once we grow stronger and stronger, and eventually come to advance strongly in our spiritual path, then one cannot be affected by these adversities. Thus, one can still go along with them and yet grow stronger in our spiritual practices. Whereas in the beginning, one should avoid such companionship. So these are kind of, in a nutshell, the precepts that come along with taking refuge in Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. And it's through following these precepts that one will begin to reap the benefits of going into refuge.
그래서 속이 쉬어야 그 동안 왜 자가도 팀으로 되게 제대로 하잖아. 왜 소를 도인다 control 뭐 왔다. 어때 정말 있나? 안에 가서 여기 저도 버전 모아서는 되게 사고 장다 치기 버전다 시제는 지고 다다 치기 버전다 여기 주고도 송겨야지 일단 저도 버전 상황 여기 주고도 시제는 소화이나 저도 이제 강한 되고도 이제는 여기 주고서 나도 나제 연락을 하는데 리그는 소제와 맞제바라마 근데 너희지 제가 나그건 제 참아 맞았을 때 이 지금은 나세는 나세는 딱되게 대쪽으로 그렇지 그게 가서 그게 지도 컨트롤 해야 되게 어떤 저를 맞아 제도를 지대래 또 근데 지금 딱 수제와 같은 내미도 일을 사는 나 소제방 고사하는 되게 제 부족공을 제게 세 막고 산이 많거나 거기다가 이제 물체가 산에 요만 그냥 들으라고 제때는 근데 여기 좀 강가에 가서 제가 여기 좀 되게 요만인데 강가에 상황에 지금 말인데 저는 여기 좀 포인트 소위 지체데 여러분들 요만한테 가서 세들이 님이 제가 우리야 사람들 되게 사박포 포메다 사박포메다 뜻뜻 뭐야게 매게요 대중에 답에 수치를 뭔가 수치는 뒤받침 거에 상관이 있을 때 수치 라인제도 그런 방법들 라인 디바이를 사다 마제바를 받는 방법 사다 concept 지바이는 되게 배열을 맞다 나도 제 건발내야 뜻하고 그 성경에서 걔네 지바이는 배열을 맞다 그때 다같이 마소바 가서 그게 다같이 리젠트를 말소바 뜻하거든 그때 가갈 배열을 위험한 진짜 아무기 조금 유행을 건데 소제발 사사는 때 아우다다 리플의 소제의 리플은 남에게 그것이 지탱이 그 더블로 세안으로 딱 리플 상황 되게 여기 주고 리링게 되는 리플 상황 되게 이래요 딱 리플 가사하게 리플 수면사 있다고 이제 진짜로 이제 리플을 하면 뭐였대 이게 최자요만 다 이게 소나한테 가서 그 전으로 하자서 도저히 뜻하지 이게 생각은 로아탄이 요만 이 교화제바이나 교기니고가 이미기가 제바이나 이게 뭐야 까나래 이게 소소소 그리고 마치었던 매개를 맞다 지금 미국 치료하는 이제 가자게 미국에 제가 템이 미국에 치료요만 그래서 그렇게 사배는 이제 너는 그 사배 그런 보이는 내다 대비라서 컨디션 또는 수수수에 그 미국에 대치기를 맞다 근데 파졌던 치기 로게 미국은 레시아는 되게 니지아는 되게 요구하고 되자 되게 가나리를 소소도 되고 되게 되다 아니 이 마치바데 태야요만 리치바 치자요만 이 마치바데 태야요만 내가 가르치까지 하면 그래서 집에 도착하고 좋았던 데 집에나 같이 들어가요 소탈이야요 어떻게 그러지 뭐고요 같이 같이 어떻게든지 그 제사 맞춰야 돼. 카바디바라부터 사이비자바라부터 이나 제차 친구들 용도 집어야 가시려요. 때는 소탈도 되고 근데 사유된 뭐뭐세나 가시가시요. 그는 소탈들이 쓰기도 그래서 달리 맞춰봐도 제대로 다 리체탄나 리들을 사당 제대로 리들 남의 집에 같이 도마도 미국 내받다 리 제발 치면서 리마 제발다 제발 리 제발 치면서 근데 리 페이스와 청춘 제발 있나요? 미국 친구 배야 그는 신임문다 생인데 신지 사회적으로 대가로 수고하는 가다대로 주방대로 근데 신 동부 아주 지금까지 그게 토다 먹고 토대 먹고 그게 신임문 지원 로마다 배 약간은 돌아서도 자치 사진 찍어도 사 사변에게 청춘지만 되어만 치들을 대가로 비자요다 나오기 때문에 그래도 좀 그냥 지어요. 근데 일단 리뷰도 소화하는 기초를 시작을 저를 가져가는 한 리뷰 소화하는 기초를
to elaborate on the precepts in relation the precept of restraint in relation to the Dharma. To elaborate that, we can talk of the restraint on our activities through the three doors of body, speech, and mind. And usually, we talk of these negative actions on which we need to observe some restraint, exercise some restraint, so that we could be relieved of their follow-up sufferings. They are categorized under what we usually call the 10 negative actions of body, speech, and mind. The three of body, which are taking others' life, stealing others' possessions, and engaging in sexual misconduct. 4 of the speech, that of lying, engaging in divisive speech, engaging in harsh speech, engaging in idle gossip, and mere what we call self-gratifying gossips. And then 3 of mind, that of ill intention, covetousness, and wrong view. So those are in kind of a related detail what we need to exercise restraint on. And because by engaging in any of these, we bring harm to others. And thus, by going into refuge by going for refuge in the Dharma, we need to exercise we need to exercise to the extent possible some restraint on our activities in these regards, and thus begin to reap the benefit of going for refuge into the Dharma. And overall, when we talk of the precepts that we need to follow, so that we will begin to, the precepts of refuge that we need to follow, so that we will begin to reap the benefit of actually going for refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, that can be condensed in just one statement, which is to observe the law of karma. One needs to observe the law of karma, and it is through the observance of law of karma and thus exercising it in one's daily life that one can then actually begin to reap the benefit of going for refuge into the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. And in this regard, we need to hear or listen to teachings about the working of karma, the working of karma, and to reflect on them, and then to study and reflect on them until we generate some sense of conviction in them. In this regard, usually we hear of how karma is infallible, that any action that we have engaged in earlier, we cannot escape from its consequences unless and until we have taken up any viable purifying practices in the meantime. Unless we have succeeded in doing so, there is no way we can escape the consequences of our karma. And besides that, the consequences of karma are much more than the seed like karmic actions. And in this regard, we can use our daily life experiences, like from a mere very small, insignificant seed, we can we see a whole huge tree growing out of that, and that tree in turn bearing numerous fruits, which in turn again carry several of those initial seeds. So just as we see in our daily life how a single, seemingly very insignificant single seed can bear such a huge fruit, likewise we say that the karmic imprints, karmic actions in the form of seed that we saw in our mental continuum has even more the potential of giving rise to much greater consequences, and also that karma has a coherence with regard to the cause and the effect. That just as the saying goes, just as we saw socially read, likewise there cannot be any possibility of undergoing or hoping for any completely unsuitable or discordant consequences from a completely different karmic cause. That there has to be a coherence between the cause and the effect, and also that if one has not cultivated the karmic cause, there is no way that one can suffer the consequences of a karma that one has not cultivated, that one has not engaged into. So thinking along these lines and then kind of applying it in our daily life, how when we look around, we come upon so many situations, so many events and situations where unless through the workings of karma we cannot come up with a satisfiable explanation, and no other way of explanation seems to hold water and seems to really kind of give us an answer to the situations around. So through exploring these vicissitudes of life that may befall ourselves or our near ones, dear ones, or that happens in general in the world, we can then develop a strong sense of conviction into the working of karma, and thereby let that have a hold on our actions in our daily life, and thus kind of exercise restraints with regard to the negative actions, negative tendencies within us, and then also kind of let that kind of conviction into the working of karma stimulate us into taking up more positive activities in our daily life. And that way we then actually begin to reap the benefit of going for refuge into Dhamma, Buddha Dhamma and Sangha.
지 건조로 지 매바 가시는 그 내매와 가시의 체력과 가시 내모와 세통과 지 가서 장애다 지 단도 용애다 지 하는 그 집에 가서 그게 생기게 전원 지청다 그래서 가가 지를 놔두때 요한테 백인만 차샤나데 정말 리비기 때 연구를 맞다 리비기 때지 그게 집에 롱 파밍이 위치다 되게 돼야 파밍이 위치다 되면 매게 미주로 돼야 미주 때문에 가가는 지바요야기 잡을 때 말 제가 매게 나를 제가 정말 중국에 시제전에 차샤나지 라면은 나도 포토요 돼야 되고 이게 소소게 된데 이제 중국의 그 문제기를 맞다 에샤다는데 가사베게 토키만 기다 되게 그 영어만 소리비게 때 작아요 그래서 지 사수나 제게나 가시게 때 대지 연구용에 가시게 때 깔리 잡아 나라이나 대지는 무용해 대지도 다도 무용해 근데 손이 제거에다 가시게 계산이요 손 나누어요 어떻게 가시게 더 기부 같이 지내면 그것부터 유지 파동 같이 지내는 요한 나누면 어떤 조건가 또 리딩이 됐지 리딩가 태전 됐지 세계 차기를 만들지 그것은 그렇게 시작하다 때 차는 지바이 연기하는 지바이 매요도 가르치고 제가 다음부터 리딩을 소가 됐지 진짜 따라 리딩이 배우고 수수면에 산 지디 기와체는 수수배 가하고 이제 이게 기와체는 되게 제바체는 근데 보통은 소위고 그때 사당 시즌도 제거제 안배 가서 수수진은 나도다 배치 근데 지하부터 가르치기는 안데 디바 시주 어떤데 디바부터 쇼되다 되게 지주고 그게 저는 나는 같이 저는 펜치도 주고 주고 뭐야 다른 게 제가 말했구나 그 선배 내돈 좀 해봐봐 되게 되게 지금 제도 그때 당시 총한테 지역을 이제 지금 총가 나와 얘기 때문에 대전도 당시 선단이 텐트 당시 비교로서 세제라도 되게 또 텐지도 근데 미국권도 지금 또선 현재 자세 구조 제한을 이 지구는 사사부터 디버스먼트 자세 구조라서 되게 재밌다 마음은 사배 디버스 소만데 소마배 내가 이게 그거라도 되게 가대기 되는데 사배 이 지구는 디버스 제발 아다 어머 똑같은 거 같다 그 저쪽에 생각 말하고 되게 장이지 뭐 말하고 되게 그거는 사 되게 사도 지제인데 미국권도 지금 자가 네발을 하고 있다 근데 네발 치치에 네발에 때도 뽕 투어지는 때도 뽕하는 거다 근데 때도 뽕마다는 이들이 지금 받을 때다 치제 뽕에서 받는 되게 네발을 하고 봐 어떤 나바 센제마다 되게 도코도 소마다부터 대박으로 와라 제바체는 되게 사도 체제는 제 어떤 제바에 나타 가서 그게 정루 제되게 가족 대체에 가서 가족 대체에 가서 초함을 따봐서 시우도 메데모도 왔던 게 손을 좋아하는 중국도 루디를 만들바 그래서 나무를 집어야는데 가서 세안을 여기 맨날 손을 누구한테 가려요 그래서 그가 이해를 제는 근데 지역에 준다 대법무기와 여기 대법무기와 있다면 여기 조사되면
So in short, if we look around and reflect on the disparities, the inequalities that we find among the human beings and also among the animal realm and animal beings, these should all indicate us, point us to the working of karma, how the individual actions accumulated in the past are responsible for this disparity. And no matter how much we attempt to kind of overcome or eradicate this, we may be with some success commensurate with our effort, but in terms of completely eradicating it is completely impossible. And besides that, in our daily life, not everything is completely dependent on our immediate actions or immediate efforts. So sometimes we see how between two people who make the same effort, how they meet with different levels of successes. And some even keep on meeting failures after failure, even despite their all-out effort and perseverance for long. So these should indicate us to the working of karma underlying our life, and that things are not merely completely limited to or completely confined to our immediate efforts and immediate actions. Of course, they should have effect in the short term, yet they only serve as conditions for our karmic actions or the imprints left from our past, not necessarily past life, but from our past time, for them to be activated. And they kind of serve as the main, determining factor in terms of which course of life we go into and how, what kind of situation or experiences we meet with. Thus, through these reflections, unless we make effort, we may not see or feel the karma or the law of causation being in operation, unless we pay attention. If we care to look into our situation and kind of really reflect on the situation more deeply, then one can come closer and closer to feeling convinced about the working of karma. And in that way, through such reflection and conviction, one will succeed in exercising restraints on one's negativities and taking up more positive, favorable actions, so that the actual benefit of going into refuge of Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha can be cultivated, and also our reflections on the impermanence of life, on the preciousness and reality of this human rebirth of fortune and leisure will all bear fruit. And another point that Rinpoche brought up is that in our daily life, due to our very strong negative karmic karmic imprint and karmic tendencies, we very often tend to fail in our spiritual practices, in our effort to kind of do better in our life in terms of responding to situations in a more positive way, looking to things from a more positive angle. Likewise, this is because of the heavy weightage or the heavy load of negativity that has kind of almost like inundated our spiritual or our mental realm. And thus, in this regard, practices of purification are very, very effective. And and the practice of purification can only be complete when it is present with all the four powers of powers of purification, of which the first is the power of reliance. In here, one needs to develop a sense of refuge and a sense of bodhicitta, a sense of refuge rather. And then the power of regret, kind of while reflecting, depending on one's level of conviction on the working of karma, one can generate different levels or different varying levels of or varying intensities of regret over the wrongdoings one has done, either in this very lifetime that one can remember, or in the past lifetime that one can infer on from the tendencies that we carry on in this life. And thus, the power of regret is very, very crucial in any purification practice to take effect. And then on top of that, the power of positivity, where we make a special effort to kind of deliberate effort in taking up positive actions, either that be reciting the 100 syllable mantra, or reciting the qualities of Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, or kind of physically or verbally or mentally engaging in certain positive cultivation. Those account for the power of positivity. And then the power of resolution, which is again very important and crucial in making a purification practice complete. And this power of resolution takes the form of resolving after having regretted, or after having seen the defect and the bad effect of the wrongdoings, and having developed a strong sense of regret, one is to then resolve not to engage in such practice anymore. If one can be so resolute to kind of so determined and so resolute to not to do it again, that's in any future time, at least at the point of during the time of purification, to that extent, the power or the depth of purification practice can be more. Whereas if one doesn't feel like feeling so determined and so resolute to really kind of come into not to engage in that forever in the future, then one may at least set a time frame and say and resolve not to engage in the same wrongdoing within that time frame. So commensurate with that, limited resolution, the purification, one can still reap certain purification. And thus, through these purification practices, even in this very lifetime, one can see how the baggage, so to say, or the weight or the load of negativity that one carry on can be lessened, can be mitigated, and under its influence, under the influence of its getting lessened and mitigated and thinned out, then one can see how spiritual potential begin to surface, and one can then reap the benefits from them, and then grow further in one's spiritual integrity through the surfacing of the spiritual potential of one's mind. So this is the way how we should go about living our life in a more sensible way, and through that one can then hope for a better rebirth in the immediate near future, and also then kind of through such a perseverance, one can then eventually hope for complete freedom from the samsaric existence once for all. So this is how going into refuge should take effect in changing us, in transforming us for the better. And this following of the precept of the refuge should then lead us to the fulfillment of our aspiration, of our initial aspiration, of our initial wish to be freed from say, the immediate run from rebirth into the lower realms of existence, and in more longer run, complete freedom from the samsara existence once for all, and then even in the eventual longer run to attain Buddhahood and be completely freed from the more subtle obscurations to omniscience and be equipped with the abilities to serve all sentient beings in the ultimate sense. In one way of referring to human beings, one way of referring to the human beings is referring to the human beings as being the able one, or in Sanskrit the term is the original term is Purush, which means the able one. So this kind of pinpoints to the inherent ability that human beings have over all other sentient beings within samsaric existence, including the celestial beings, including the gods in the heavenly realms. And in this regard, we can consider how much we have, how much material development, physical advancement we have made over this over the past very short period. And now, even in this very lifetime, we have come to see things that we have never ever imagined before, and which our forefathers and our immediate parents have not been able to use them. Right now, they have not been able to imagine, but right now we are able to see them and use them, and then they are even kind of anticipated to kind of advance further, and who knows what the world would be like in terms of its physical advancement and material development in the next few years. And this kind of points to our inherent mental ability as human beings over other sentient beings. But the problem here is that we have been so engrossed in developing outwardly that we have neglected our mental development, our inner development. But at the same time, at this stage or the level of development and advancement that we see in the material world, in the physical level, it's indicative of how we have this inherent ability, mental ability as human beings over other sentient beings. And kind of thinking of this or understanding this, if we care to, even on our own individual level, if we care to kind of at least partly, draw our attention inward and make effort, take time out and make effort in developing our inner strength and our inner capabilities, we will, if we persevere, if we could continue in our effort, we will definitely be sure of attaining some advancement and attaining some success. It's only a case of our having neglected it and having given it the least attention and least time. So, kind of remembering this, considering this, we should allow time and energy and attention in developing our inner strength, and that too in line with deliberately taking a positive attitude, developing them, strengthening them, and then along with that, kind of locating our negative attitudes and making special effort of restraining them and eventually kind of purifying them. And that way, then we can hope for a better rebirth, at the very least, a better rebirth in our next lifetime. And if we could do so, then our having had this inherent, this unique, special inherent mental power, mental ability over other sentient beings would have been worth, would have benefited us. Otherwise, if we keep on merely focused and directed to merely physical and material development, and completely neglecting our inner development, not only we will lag behind in our spiritual development or in our inner development, but even our material development can serve as an additional source of agony, suffering, and misery for us at the inner, at the mental level, on the mental level. And we all know that the sufferings, miseries, and on the mental level is much more stronger and has much more influence, has much more say in affecting our, in ascertaining our quality of life, irrespective of the spiritual or the material development surrounding us. At this point we have break, 10 minutes break, but only for those who are sitting here. So, the way of taking up restraint on the level of one's own actions of body, speech and mind, and abstaining from engaging in the negative actions can free us or can keep us from being born into any of the three lower realms in the near future or in the next lifetimes. And also observing the law of karma in the sense of by seeing how negative actions impel us into lower rebirths of suffering, and how taking up positive actions can impel our rebirth into the higher realms. Through understanding that, observing the law of karma can keep us from being born into the lower realms of existence and kind of put us into the higher realms of existence, still within samsara. So this kind of a practice, beginning with the generation of a strong sense of revulsion against the miseries and sufferings that qualify rebirth in the lower realms of existence, and under that sense of revulsion, looking up to Buddha, Dharma and Sangha for protection from rebirth into the lower realms of existence, and then following that, taking up following that, living or implementing the precepts of going into refuge on that level. All these can only keep us from being born into the lower realms of existence. And that too, it doesn't completely, uproot the causes for future rebirth into the lower realms of existence themselves. And thus, this scope of practice, limited as it is in kind of giving us just a temporary relief or temporary freedom from rebirth into the lower realms of existence, is considered to fall within the level of low scope Buddhist practitioner. And although this is like a stepping stone, but one should use that in kind of growing further in one's spiritual perspective, in one's spiritual vision, and growing in the sense of seeing how temporary freedom from being born into the lower realms of existence doesn't guarantee complete freedom from the lower realms of existence. Besides that, even being born into the higher realms of existence isn't a freedom from the samsaric bondage, and also freedom from the sufferings that qualify the existence or the rebirth, even in the higher realms, of existence within samsara. So reflecting on this and developing a sense of discussion, so to say, over the entire range of existence, no matter whether it's in the higher realm or in the lower realm, and then developing a strong sense of aspiration to be liberated from samsara as a whole, not merely a temporary relief from the lower range of existence, but from samsara as a whole. This is considered to be the entrance, or to be the starting point of one's progression into the middling scope practice. And in this respect, on top of avoiding negative actions and observing karma, one should go a step further in seeing how and where the afflicted and where the karmic actions, no matter whether they are relatively positive or the negative ones, are rooted in, and thus kind of being able to locate the root of the afflicted emotion, the root of the karmic actions that impel us into the samsaric rebirth. And thus working at that level is like the essence of the practice within this middling scope practitioner. So, in this regard, the order of going about developing what we usually call this strong sense of renunciation or rather a strong sense of discussion over the entire samsaric existence as a whole, is by first locating the limitations, the dissatisfactory nature of samsaric existence as a whole, not just the lower realms of existence within it, but rather the entire samsaric existence as a whole, and try to kind of locate the dissatisfactory nature, limitation, miserable state of samsaric existence as a whole. And in this regard, we can reflect on different categories of suffering or different categories of dissatisfaction within the samsaric existence, so long as an existence, a rebirth, no matter how, relatively, less suffering or relatively less inconvenient it may be, so long as it falls within the samsaric existence, so long as, which is to say that so long as it is governed by afflicted emotions, afflictions, afflicted attitudes and actions induced by them, it still has, it is still not free from dissatisfactory nature. It is still not free from limitations, and still not free from the possibility of plunging us into the lower realms of existence. So, reflecting on the dissatisfactory nature of samsara, then we will develop a strong urge within us to seek liberation from it. And in this regard, we can dwell or reflect on the different levels or different categories of dissatisfactory nature of samsara. We can reflect on the three sufferings, in the category of 3, or sufferings in the category of 6, in the category of 8, etc., etc., and thereby come to terms with the dissatisfactory nature of samsaric existence as a whole, irrespective of where we are born, and rather than being deceived or be fooled by the superficial, colorfulness, so to say, or superficial promises, superficial promises of samsaric existence, and through that we will then develop a strong sense of seeking a liberation out of samsaric existence as a whole. In this regard, taking up or looking at the samsaric existence from the point of view of dissatisfaction in the category of 8, we can begin by seeing how within samsara, within the samsaric existence, nothing is certain, or particularly our relationships to each other are very uncertain. And from Buddhist perspective, this uncertainty is not solely responsible or solely responsible or blamable to any immediate physical happening, but rather it is kind of built into the very fabric, so to say, of samsaric existence. It is itself in the nature of samsara for our relationships to be very, very uncertain. This we can see in our present lifetime also, how our relationships keep changing, how there is this inherent unreliability, uncertainty about them, more particularly across lifetimes. We keep changing our relationships, and thus reflecting on that uncertainty nature, uncertainty aspect of our relationship within samsara, this should help us in kind of moderating our, sense of clinging to a particular relationship and sacrifice our spiritual integrity for them. Kind of compromising our spiritual integrity, compromising our deeper principle for such unreliable relationship. This is not to say that one should completely neglect relationship at all, but rather have to have a very realistic, practical appreciation of the state of relationship, and thus kind of go about maintaining it, pursuing it in a more moderate way, rather than kind of completely blindly plunging oneself into it and investing, so to say, too much, overly investing into it, and then end up being crashed or end up kind of building additional suffering upon oneself. So, by this condition of uncertainty, particularly applied to relationships, this is not to mean that we need to neglect our relationship and completely let it get what you call fall apart. Rather, it is to say that if we have a relationship with others, either in all different ways, either as friends or as couples, as parents and children, as teacher and taught, whatever, we should see to it that the relationships are worth having. Within that relationship, we should help each other in cultivating positivities, in what you call cultivating what you call better essence of our relationship, in helping each other along the spiritual path, and that such a relationship should not impel us, or should not lead us to worsen our spiritual integrity. These relations should not be a reason for us to completely disintegrate in our spiritual practices. These relationships should not be a pretext for us, or should not be a reason or a pretext for us to kind of sacrifice our spiritual integrity and spiritual principles, because such relationships, being from a karmic point of view, being rooted in afflictions, being rooted in afflicted emotions and actions induced by them, actions tainted by them, they have a contaminated cause, and thus it is in the very nature of such relationships that they are not going to last, that they are not going to last as such forever. It is in the very nature of such a relationship to kind of disintegrate eventually. And thus, from that point of view, no point to kind of overtly emphasize this relationship to the point of risking what you call rebirth into lower realms, either for oneself or for others. And rather look at this relationship in a proper perspective, in a more sensible way, so that we help each other, use that as an opportunity of helping each other in growing spiritually, in kind of building spiritual powers, spiritual positivities and spiritual forces. Likewise, if we look at our wealth, our position, fame, status, etc., etc., one can see that in the very nature of them, they have the seed of disintegration. That there is this seed of uncertainty about them. In the very fabric of them, it's kind of built into them. And here, one can be reminded of what can be called conclusions for certain conclusions, general conclusions about samsaric transition. In that, whatever is collected, it is bound to dissipate. Whatever is born is bound to, it is just built into its very nature to die. Whatever meetings we have, every meeting is bound to end up in parting. So it's in the very nature of themselves, not that there is, not that we have to wait for some other, acquired causes later on for them to disintegrate, for them to give way to disintegration or not. But it is in the very nature of themselves that they can eventually disintegrate. So looking, and from a Buddhist perspective, we say that this is because they have contaminations in their causes, as their causes. Contamination in the form of afflicted emotions, self-grasping afflicted emotions, and actions impelled by them. And thus, the resultant outcome, so to say, cannot be something ultimately reliable. So, thinking along these lines, one should develop a sense of unreliability in the ultimate sense over samsaric existence. And then another aspect of samsaric existence is how, no matter what we engage in, what we get to experience, doesn't lead to this ultimate satisfaction. And here it is to point to us that samsaric, any comfort or joy or comfort or pleasures within samsara do not hold out a perennial promise, and they do not bring about permanent satisfaction. And this we can see in the light of how throughout our life, even just consider this very lifetime, we have been, consuming food every day, and that whatever is consumed in the morning is kind of used up by the end of the day, or by the end of half the day, through the day. And likewise, we keep continuing, and does none of this consumption lead to any kind of ultimate satisfaction and lead us from having to depend on them anymore. And likewise is the situation with any kind of position, any kind of glory, so long as it is rooted within samsara and has been caused by afflicted emotions and actions impelled by them, it's in the very nature of these comforts and pleasures and experiences that they do not lead to ultimate satisfaction. So, and this aspect of samsara is to kind of awaken us to the basic or the intrinsic essencelessness or meaninglessness what do you call, meaninglessness in the ultimate sense of samsaric existence, and how we should make sure that whatever comforts and joys and pleasures we do experience in samsara, we should make sure that they are worth undergoing, in that we can endure them, we go through them to kind of awaken in our spiritual understanding and in our spiritual progression, rather than merely, go through them for the sake of doing them, because this is not going to lead us to any kind of a end satisfactory result. This will just keep on going, and we will never hit a point where we will have been satisfied about them. So this aspect of samsara again needs to be considered, and through that we should develop a sense of intensify the urge to kind of be liberated from samsara and work at the very root level of samsara and kind of work out a way out of that.
Two kittens which are abandoned outside the temple. We happen to find the two kittens. Holiness is blessing the two kittens. Was